this one. Boom, boom. And then we'll do one of these. Boom, boom, boom. Sheriff Staly in the house. Yeah.
All right.
Hey, I got to tell you what an honor it is to have you here. And I got to start the show for those that don't know this wonderful gentleman. 40 years you've dedicated to safety of this community and other communities.
All right.
Medal of Valor, Purple Heart, husband, grandfather?
Yes.
They do good.
You did great.
And you have been protecting our community specifically since 2017.
Correct.
And I have to tell you, on the behalf of not only my father and my family, but so many people that watch this show and that are friends of mine, we absolutely appreciate everything that you've done for us.
Well, you know, it's a great team. And so what I did was take my experience from another community, a much larger community, and brought it here. We moved to Flagler County in 2006. My wife and I did, and fell in love with it. And I was enjoying retirement, actually, and was recruited by the community to run for sheriff. And but I've got a great team. They're really working hard for the community, and the results show it.
Amen. And I got to tell you, when I already was extremely ecstatic when you got into office, if you call it that. But when do you remember, it was probably like less than a year ago or so, you were doing a live video for something that was going on in the B section. There was like some kind of altercation, and I have a lot of family in the B section.
Okay.
And Sheriff, what you did meant so much to me individually. Like, this is where I really started to fall in love with you, because I finally had something that I was intimate with that you were doing. You were going live, you were there, and you were once again, for anyone that's in uniform, putting their life on the line on a daily basis is like a hero to me. You're there and you're like telling everyone what's up. And I had family there, and I'm communicating. They weren't by a computer at that point, or even by their phone, I guess, because I'm calling my family. But what you did in that moment meant a lot to me. And I think I love what you're doing in general. You're utilizing, that's what even like Chief Downey, when we were talking, what you guys are doing is you're utilizing the internet and you're utilizing the communication factor to your advantage. And once again, man, it's a fantastic opportunity for you to. But do you remember that? I'm sure you remember.
So I'm pretty sure the incident you're referring to was a guy that was holding himself hostage in his vehicle. And this also was a great example of the technology that we've implemented in the last year. And we have license plate recognition readers, a number of them strategically throughout the county. And so every tag or every car that drives by one of these locations reads the tag, and it immediately runs it through a state and national crime databases and let us know if the car is stolen, if possibly there's a fugitive in the car, all the way down to an expired tag, believe it or not, or if it's a sex offender and so forth. So this particular incident you're referring to, a guy that had stolen a car in Virginia 5 days earlier, happened to get off the interstate on Palm Coast Parkway, drove by one of our license plate recognition readers. We got a stolen car hit. Deputies on patrol found him within a couple minutes. He took us into a residential area, and then held himself hostage for about 4.5, 5 hours until he finally gave up. And what we learned in the process was that Virginia authorities had no clue who had stolen this car.
Really?
This was a true whodunit crime in Virginia. It was a very violent auto theft where he had gone into a business, duct taped the clerk, and duct taped their hands and feet, covered the mouth. And our speculation is that he had planned to do something much worse.
Wow.
And something scared him. And we found out that this offender had actually been profiled in 1996 on America's Most Wanted.
I did not know
for stabbing his then wife 40 times. And she lived, believe it or not.
Wow.
And so this was a bad guy. So this just shows the technology working to help protect the community, because we will never know what we potentially prevented
Right.
Why did he get off the interstate? What was he going to do? Was he
Right.
going to violently attack someone? Was he going to steal another car? He'd had this car for 5 days. So, that's the technology that we're using today that makes the deputies more effective and efficient and help protect the community. So, because this was a long standoff, we had our SWAT team out there.
Was it really it was like 5 hours,
correct.
Ish? Wow.
And we had our hostage negotiation team out there. I was on scene, and we had evacuated the nearby homes.
I saw that.
And but the community wants to know what's going on, and I believe that an informed community is an engaged community and a safer community, because we can't do it ourselves.
Right.
We focus a lot on see something, say something. I would much rather have the community call us, our non-emergency number if it's a non-emergency, and say, there's somebody suspicious here. Let us check it out. Maybe it's okay, but most of the time the community is right. There's something wrong.
Well, if it doesn't make sense, it's usually not true, right? So those people that are there, and that's what Chief Downey was hinting on, and he was stressing that, and that goes out to not only our community, but I love our little block we were talking about today. I said, I wonder if the sheriff's going to bring a marked car, and they're like, oh, they think I'm in trouble, because Chief didn't either. But the point is that it is very imperative for those out there. If something's odd, just report it. But you brought up two things that I want to hint on. First of all, you've been shot 3 times.
Well, it was one incident, but it was 3 rounds.
I saw that. And I read about that.
That was.
Is it okay if we go on a tangent about that? Because
sure.
I think that has a lot to do with who you are as a character. I don't know too many people that have been shot 3 times.
Well, I can tell you it's not something I want to repeat.
I'm sure. Like I said, my apologies. And once again, for those that are listening, we've had people think that we're not actually live. We're live. So if you got to roll.
Yeah, no, we're good.
If something happens, you got to roll. But is it cool if we talk about that? Because when I read about that, Sheriff, I was like, what? What I'm sure a crazy experience, but I'd love to hear about it.
Sure. So I had been a cop for 3 years, municipal policing. I joined the Orange County Sheriff's Office in 1977, July 1977, as a deputy sheriff. And a year later, I was the acting shift corporal.
Okay.
And Orange County was, a pretty big county back then, not as big as it is today. But we didn't have very many deputy sheriffs. And so during our briefing, we got a notified that on the previous shift, the midnight shift, this was a day shift, that somebody tried to burn down the Exxon gas station at Mercy Drive and Colonial Drive.
Okay.
And so my shift now, a deputy is dispatched to that Exxon, saying there was a guy there threatening to burn down the gas station. So we didn't know if it was the same suspect that had tried to firebomb it the night before. So the deputy responds, and I respond as his backup. And communications weren't good like they are today. In fact, the sheriff's office then did not even have portable radios.
Wow.
All we had was our car radio, and it was always a joke within the law enforcement there, because Orlando Police Department had portable radios.
Oh.
So we used to razz the OPD cops saying, if you want to be a real cop, come to the sheriff's office where you have to fight your way back to the car to call for help.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
So we arrive on the scene, this deputy and myself, and a suspect was gone. And while we're trying to learn what happened, we get a call that the highway patrol needs a backup. And they told us Fair Villa and Colonial Drive. And so the other deputy goes there. We can't find a trooper. And they had told us on the radio that it's referenced the same subject. So it turns out what happened was that a trooper was driving by while we were responding.
Okay.
The gas station owner flagged him down. The suspect left, and he was following them. But because of the radio communication back in 1978, there was time delays and miscommunication between their dispatch center, the county sheriff's dispatch center, and we were kept getting wrong locations. So we split up, and we finally found the trooper at Ivy Lane and Old Winter Garden Road. So for your listeners that probably aren't familiar with that, that is a an impoverished area just outside the city limits of Orlando,
Okay.
on the western edge at the time. So very low income, impoverished area. For your listeners, it would be kind of a South Bunnell
Okay.
type area.
Gotcha.
where the HUD housing is. Okay. So I get there, the other deputies there, and this guy's just raising Cain. And we told him that if you don't settle down, we're going to arrest you for disorderly conduct.
Right.
And he settled down for a few minutes and told us that he was mad at the gas station because they worked on his car and his car didn't
that's all. Okay.
work. The reality is he didn't even own a car.
Where's the state trooper though in this? Like, where he's close?
Yeah, he was still at that location
Okay.
also. And so he started acting up again. And so in code, I looked at the deputy as a relatively rookie deputy. And I said, arrest him for disorderly conduct. As a shift supervisor, I didn't want to tie myself up at the jail. So this guy had already told us he was going to fight us, so we tried to arrest him. And in fact, I remember when he said that, when he was calmed, and we said, look, if you don't calm down, we're going to arrest you.
Right.
And he goes, if you try to arrest me, there'll be a hell of a fight. And I remember telling him that no, there wouldn't be. He was wrong. Well, he was right. Okay.
At this point, too, not to interrupt, but in parallel, what you're saying, I would imagine you're looking this dude up head and toe, looking for like a firearm. You didn't see any of that at this point,
correct.
Right?
So correct. I mean, we're tactically standing, right. And the way you're taught in the police academy. Right. So the deputy goes up to him and says, "Sir, I'm afraid I have to arrest you." And the guy, at that point, when you go to arrest somebody, that person has one of three choices, and you can't make that choice for them.
Right.
They can either surrender, they can flee, or they can fight you.
Interesting.
Okay. Every arrest in America, that's one of three choices that the suspect is going to have to make.
Right.
Okay. And so in this particular case, he took off running. And so as the shift supervisor, I had a portable radio. It wasn't a very good portable radio.
You're the guy with the radio.
But I'm the only one with a radio. So I get on the radio, tell them that we're in foot pursuit southbound Ivy Lane. The other deputy's a little faster runner than I am, and he tackled them.
Got it.
And while I'm running up, they're feverishly fighting and wrestling on the ground. And I see the deputy pretty frantically pushing the guy away. And back then we carried revolvers.
Okay.
And I was wearing my own personal vest because the agency had just started issuing protective vests at that time.
So that wasn't even a standard yet, Sheriff?
No. Wow. And that agency at the time was only issuing front and rear panels because they didn't think deputies would wear if it was included the sides.
Oh, you mean that's what it right. Only protected here, not the.
Correct.
This is fascinating.
And so I had purchased my own vest. Now, you have to remember, I'm making $10,300 a year. And a vest back then was about $250, right. Which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. But it turned out it was a good decision. So I had my own vest, and I see the deputy frantically pushing this guy away. And we had a holster back then called a break front holster. The problem with the break front holster is it's great to get it out, but it's not great for retention if somebody's on top of you. And that's what was going on. Okay. So this suspect actually disarmed this deputy and took his gun, and now I'm almost on top of it. So I'm going for my gun, and I kick. I wore boots with steel toes, right. And I kicked him in the chest, trying to buy some time and get him away from the other deputy, and that caused him to come up from that deputy. And before I could get my gun out of the holster, he fired the first round. It hit me in the side, on a side panel where my side panel was, side chest, and then twice in my gun arm that I still have scars from today. He was shot 5 times, did not die. Turned out he was doped up on a derivative of LSD, And the ambulance people told me that when they were taking him to the hospital, he wasn't complaining about his bullet wounds.
Wow.
He was complaining about where I kicked him in the chest.
Wow.
Okay. LSD, he wasn't, of course, we're only shooting 38 rounds.
Is that what you guys were carrying back then?
And so they're not the most powerful bullet in today's standard. And so we knew we were hitting him, but he wasn't going down.
Golly.
And I was knocked down from the round that hit me in the chest. And a lot of people, I used to teach in the academy, and say, what does that feel like? Well, if you took a baseball bat and hit me as hard as you could, that's what it would feel like. Because while the vest stops the bullet, all that energy is still continuing. So your body absorbs that. A lot better than a bullet hole, though. But I remember laying on the ground, and he come running up, and I thought he was shooting at me and missing. Because the last time I saw him he was pointing the gun down. So I got a little ahead of the story, but it turned out that when I called the foot pursuit, that another deputy was nearby, pulled into the parking lot of Elmer's Paint and Body is where all this occurred. And he actually witnessed the shooting.
Wow. So
the shots that I heard was him and the other deputy exchanging gunfire.
They started exchanging.
And the trooper fired one shot. To this day, we don't know where it went. And then I was getting my gun out. Now, keep in mind that, it just took me, 5 minutes or more to explain that. From the time I called in a foot pursuit to the time I called in that I had been shot, 11 seconds. That's how quick these incidents can change that law enforcement get involved in. It start out, on a relatively minor call, a disturbance call is how this started. But the deputy attributes that I saved his life. About 6 months later, he left law enforcement as a career.
Yeah.
He became a electrical engineer. He's very successful. Has a number of patents and so forth. So, it all worked out. I survived, and the agency gave me the Medal of Valor and Purple Heart Award from the sheriff's office. And it was kind of ironic in 2015, Governor Scott gave me the Medal of Heroism on behalf of the state of Florida. So I kind of felt like one of these World War II guys, that, oh yeah, you did this like 30 years ago.
Right.
And now you're recognized. But it was quite an honor to be recognized for that. And, I guess my biggest fear as sheriff is having one of my deputies shot or seriously injured or killed. We do a lot of training to try to prevent that, make them tactically sound.
Yep.
But it's not the it was danger back in the 70s, but it certainly is dangerous today.
I would say without a doubt it's probably way more dangerous with the accessibility of firearms, etc. But no joke, Sheriff, when I read that, I didn't know obviously anything in depth about it, but I have to say to you, man, like you were a hero before I even read the 3 shots, but I thank you, because I can't, when you talked about your partner leaving the force,
right.
You almost can't blame him, right? I can imagine. Were you married at the time?
I was not.
Okay.
Yeah.
That probably would have had a lot to do with it if you were.
Well, maybe, but he was not married either at the time.
Oh, really?
But he told me specifically that he left because of that incident.
I'm sure.
Because your life flashes in front of you. In fact, I can remember laying on the ground, and I'm 21 years old, and I'm laying there, and I remember laying there while I was struggling to get my gun out because I was shot with my gun hand. And I remember thinking, I always wondered how I was going to die, and now I know.
That's like literally going through your head.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember like it was yesterday?
Yeah, I can.
You can like the smells, the sound.
Yeah, it was July 28th, 1978 at 10:20 in the morning. And those are the incidents that I'm on my 45th year in law enforcement, and you don't forget those incidents.
Well, I hope that those stories are not a common denominator for our men in uniform and women, because I can imagine the stuff that you went through. 21 years old, Sheriff.
Yeah.
So we still don't know our left hand from our right hand at 21. And here you are.
So my grandmother, after, I was home for about 30 days recuperating, and then I had to have surgery about a year later on my arm. But my grandmother asked me, she said, Ricky, they call me, you really scared us. And if you would like to go to law school, I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
And I said, Grandma, this is really what I want to do, but thank you. Now, some ways in hindsight, I kind of wish I'd have taken her up on that now that I'm older, but, you just, fortunately, there's a lot of cops that have paid the ultimate sacrifice. Fortunately, I was one of the lucky ones. I have my assistant type sympathy cards to law enforcement officers, to the family that have been killed in the line of duty, and to their agency. And you would not believe how many of those cards I've mailed out in 2.5 years. It's probably close to, it's two, one to the agency, one to the survivors. And I've probably mailed over 300.
Sheriff, that's horrible, man.
So it's dangerous across the country. Dangerous.
Are the numbers? I'm not a numbers guy in any realm of my life because I just don't like numbers. But statistically speaking, is it pretty much go without saying that we've seen a huge increase in police fatalities of just?
We've seen an increase in the last few years. I think you would have seen a huge increase if it was not for protective vests. Because that's so common now.
It's that common getting shot at, Sheriff?
It is across America. Fortunately, in our community, no. It's very rare. But I had a sergeant shot at about a little over a year ago here in Flagler County. I've had people pull guns on my deputies, and they have been they were able to de-escalate it and without having to fire a shot, which is a nice compliment to not only their training, but no cop wants to take a life.
Oh, of course.
And that's the last thing you want to do, because you're sworn to protect life. And but sometimes offenders put you in positions where you have to do something. And there's probably been clearly a dozen times since I've been sheriff, January 3rd, 2017, that deputies here would have had the legal right to use deadly force and chose to not use it. And so it's quite a compliment to our hiring process, the training, and their commitment to the job.
Well, that's what was interesting. Back to the story when you guys de-escalated the situation with the dude that was whatever, you held up for 5 hours. I was extremely excited to hear when you were giving kind of the debriefing to the community via the Facebook Live thing. And you said that you was able to, nobody was hurt. And I mean, it's hats off to you guys as an organization and dealing with somebody that's obviously not all there in that moment or in general. But I mean, have you seen, is it because of the accessibility, you think, to firearms, and is a lot of it happening on patrol stops? Is that majority, or is this across the board when you guys are just going to do a wellness check and this guy's got a?
Well, I mean, it can happen at any time. That's why you always have to be, aware of your surroundings. First, let me say that, I'm a life member of the NRA. Mm-hmm. I was endorsed by the Unified Sportsmen of Florida, which is an NRA supported organization, when I ran for sheriff. So I'm a staunch Second Amendment supporter. We don't need, in my opinion, additional laws on gun control. We need to enforce the laws that are already here, because otherwise you take guns away from law-abiding citizens, and the black market and the criminals, the underground market, are still going to have guns. And so, they'll steal them from a house burglary or from a car left unlocked. And, that's not responsible gun ownership when you leave a car unlocked and you have your gun in there. But on the other hand, it should be like when I was growing up that you could leave things unlocked, but you can't do that today. So we ask as residents to do common sense, help us prevent crime, lock your car doors. We have all kinds of videos from security cameras, residential cameras, where bands of thieves, generally some that live here, some that come from other communities, Daytona especially, or Palatka, come into our community, and we see them walking from house to house to house early in the morning, pulling on car doors. And if they're locked, they go to the next house. They go to your neighbor's house until they find one that's unlocked. Right. And then sometime they rifle through them and they get virtually nothing. Right. In most cases. But sometimes they find a gun. Sometimes they find that the owner left keys in the car and then that car is stolen. Bye-bye. And so, crime is down significantly in Flagler County, down 22%.
Is that the number? I knew we were up there.
Yeah, is
that a yearly or was that a quarterly thing?
For 2018.
2018
compared to 2017. And so far we're down again this year. But imagine how much more we could have been down if the community would keep their garage doors closed and keep their cars locked, because we don't have a lot of violent crime here. Right. What we have is property crime and crime of opportunity.
That's why I literally saw today you guys post like 3 things of updates and what's going on. And once again,
there's more coming.
That you're doing that. And it's just good to know. And it's good to, whenever you get those snapshots of the suspects, I'm always, I'm like, oh, do I know him? Do I not know him? And you guys are doing a hell of a job with that communication factor. But it's interesting because I myself, I'm an advocate for, carrying arms and things of that nature, but you've almost got 5 decades in this situation. What is your honest?
That makes me sound really old when you say that.
Hey, well,
for your listeners, I started when I was age 19.
It's amazing though. But my reason for asking you this is just a generic, like, what's your honest opinion of where we may be headed? This is just off the top of my head. I didn't have this planned to ask you none of this, but do you think you think as a country we're going to be all right until further notice with our arms, or do you think we're headed to some rocky territory?
Well, I think the bigger cities that don't have good relationships with their community will have rocky times. Okay. So I was in one riot in my career, and that was in the city of Orlando, and it was triggered. The actual flashpoint was an arrest by an Orlando police officer. Okay, in an impoverished area downtown, but that wasn't the real trigger point. That was the flashpoint. It's socioeconomic issues that tend to drive the unrest. It's the police action that kind of brings it boil over.
The tipping point
is usually what happens in the riots that I've seen. So, I was involved in the one, and then I've seen and studied the ones that have happened in other cities. And there's usually a significant number of community issues that are occurring. And there's a flashpoint that's usually a police action that causes it to boil over.
What do you mean by flashpoint? What's like
a law enforcement officer shoots and kills someone. It might be a white officer shooting and killing a minority individual, and then rumors get out there, and it's not factual. Sometimes it is.
Right.
And so that kind of takes on a life of its own. Sometimes community agitators, and not from that community, come in to fire up the community. So those are kind of the flashpoints, or maybe an excessive use of force sometimes. If you go back to 1980, you had what was known as the McDuffie incident in South Florida, where they beat an arrestee. So there are flashpoints, and police officers are not perfect, and they're going to occasionally make mistakes, and then it depends on how you handle it.
Right. Well, I think what you guys are doing, and I'm specifically putting this on you because I love what you're doing. You're taking the initiative to be the guy behind the camera, which is fantastic. And so is Chief Downey. And when you guys take that time out of your day to do it, you're putting yourself in a very vulnerable position, because I got my little haters and I got a little show, and you guys are like heads of the community. So there's always going to be that guy or person that's, but it's what I love about it is that those that have that we're all bleeding the same color realize that you guys are humans, and you guys are husbands and wives and parents. And I think I have hope in humanity right now. I can sometimes be like a half glass full kind of guy, but and I'm pointing to the TV, because I mean, the internet, if people use the internet for the means of, it's all fun and games to have some fun on there, see some cat memes, etc.
Right. But
when you're using it for the sake of enlightening someone's day and being some kind of, I don't know, just a resource, I think people are starting, there is a refined group of people that are using the internet for podcasts, educational purposes, communication purposes. Right. And I'm hoping that through this, there becomes more of a love and a compassion and empathy, not just on the behalf of our police officers, but from humans.
Yeah. I think we've tried to do a pretty good job on humanizing the Flagler County Sheriff's Office. So, for example, Father's Day, we did photos of our deputies with their family. We did the same thing for Mother's Day. And I'll tell you one that I initially was totally against, and was wrong. And I told my staff I was wrong. So you may remember about a year ago, the lip sync challenge went across America,
I do
right?
remember that, yes.
So my staff came to me and said, we need to do that. I said, that's the stupidest thing I have ever seen law enforcement do. And we kept getting challenges. And so finally I relented. And I think ultimately we did a very good lip sync challenge. I got a very creative staff and very creative employees. They even got me involved in it to pretend like I remembered how to play guitar. And in my initial response was totally wrong. And I told my staff that, because what it did do was humanize law enforcement. Yeah. Now, some agencies paid a lot of money to do really fancy productions. We did not. We used the equipment that we had, at $60 worth of software and a video camera, and did it. And I attribute that to a very creative staff and employees that got involved, and it was a hit. And it was I thought it was a very good production. And for your listeners, I think it's still on our website, flaglersheriff.com, under videos. So if you're curious and want to see what we did, but we did it to the tune of Jailhouse Rock.
I loved it. I saw that. And so it's very special for me, because not only has my father been helping and been part of your guys' organization as a whole, but Brittany is very dear to me. And so Christina, that we went to school together, and to see how you guys are a family. Really, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's got to be I had someone tell me that was really dear to me, that said that it's the closest thing they could have that had served in the military. And this is the closest. It's still not the same, they said, but it's the closest thing they've ever felt. It's unexplainable, the kind of bond. And you guys just had that picnic, and I saw your photos. And once again, I think it's a byproduct of illustrating you guys are humans.
So one of the things I did when I was sheriff-elect is I met with every employee and every volunteer before I actually took office for at least 15 minutes, sometimes longer. And I asked them specific questions, what would they like to see in the agency? What would they do if they were sheriff? What one change would it be, and so forth. So I got all that information. And one of the constant themes that I kept hearing was that we want to be a family. So when I met with all the employees and said, okay, here I'm going to lay out the vision, because I think it's important for employees to know what we're going to do, what we're supposed to accomplish, not just handle a call every day. Okay. And so I said, look, I can create the environment of being a family, but you have to participate. And so that's what bore out the annual Sheriff's Office Family Picnic.
Was that done before a year?
No.
Okay.
No. And I think the employees had a good time. We changed it this year to a new location, which I think was a better location. It allowed employees and their families to easily get to the beach if they wanted to. It had some inside. It was air conditioning, so it was too hot. You could eat your barbecue food, and We had partners from the community, Tony Emerald Custom Homes. For 2 years in a row, he has donated all the barbecue.
Wow.
Him and his team have barbecued all the food starting like at 6 in the morning. And he already told me he wanted to do it again for the next year. So, it's a great partnership. And all the appointed staff, so that's people like Christina, okay, and our single star commanders, if you will, because they all serve at the pleasure of the sheriff. We each have to pay into a fund to do that for the employees. So, for me as a sheriff, I pay $100, and then it's a lower scale for lower in the appointed ranks. And that's to put this on for the employees. So it doesn't cost the employees a dime.
Right.
And it's our way to serve them and thank our team for working so hard for the community.
Right.
And so, you keep a motivated team, everybody wins.
It's reminding me of something that Chief Downey just said, which was awesome. He talked about being involved and then being like committed. And it was an amazing analogy that he gave. And the ones that are committed are the ones that are kind of giving the egg. Not much. They're giving.
Right.
But the ones that are involved are like, it's the bacon. The people putting their life into that situation where that's it. There's no out. And I think you've built a phenomenal team of people. And it's this adulting thing is really unique. And every day I wake up and I'm like, wow, it's happening. And here I am, like, here's Brittany, someone I've known a little bit. And here you are, the sheriff sitting at my kitchen table. And I love to just boil it down to we're love and like being humans. And it's just so interesting. I wanted to ask you this too earlier, but you pretty much already hit it, was as a gentleman in the situations that you've been in, have you had, like, I call them the Jesus moments? I would imagine when you were 21, that probably one of have you had many, like, as you've gotten older and you're realizing what is something that you could tell, me, if I was like your son and you'd say, hey, listen, be prepared for it. Cause this adulting thing's interesting, isn't it?
Well, being an adult is certainly more challenging than being a kid growing up, as long as you have parents that are, raising you properly and stuff like that. I'm a product. My parents were divorced when I was 11 years old. So when I hear people say, well, they're this way because their parents got divorced, I call out BS on that. Because it's what you do with the cards that you're dealt with. So to answer your question, probably the most come to Jesus moment was being shot. Okay. But I think everyone has those, because you always have, bumps in the road in your life. And the real question is, what do you do with that bump? Mm-hmm. So you can react two different ways. When you get that lemon, are you making lemon juice or lemonade? They're both very different flavors. Mm-hmm. And so it's all about how you react and how you handle those bumps in the road that are going to come your way. That's just life. And how do you respond to it? And then, as a young deputy sheriff, what I would always do is try to better myself. So I put myself through college, working full time.
I was going to say, didn't you end up with your master's anyways? Because your grandmother wanted you to.
Yeah, so she didn't pay for it, though, unfortunately. But so while I was a young deputy sheriff, up through corporal, I went part-time to Rollins College and got my bachelor's in criminal justice while working full-time on the streets in Orange County. And then the ironic thing is, by the time I got my bachelor's in 1982, when I started it, if you had a bachelor's, you were like the cream of the law
back
enforcement.
Then, right?
Okay. So by the time I got it done, because I'm doing it part-time, if there were a lot of bachelors out there. So then you had to get a master's. So I sat out for a while. I had a family going and marriage and all that kind of stuff. So in 90, I decided I really needed to get my master's. So I took one night school course at the University of Central Florida. It was like, I can't do this again this way. So I searched around and I found an executive program.
Nice.
Today it's probably online like they do it, but here it was a very accelerated, condensed version. So I attended the University of Louisville, and how I was able to do that is I saved up my vacation and comp time.
Wow.
And then went up there for 6 weeks and basically just, took 15 hours of classes in 6 weeks. So, but that's how that worked for me. And I was able to get my master's in 13 months as a result.
Incredible.
And, so I encourage education in the sheriff's office. We support our employees to get degrees. We even pay for them if it's job related.
Really?
There's certain limitations, of course, to that, but it's part of a recruiting incentive, but also a way to get a better educated workforce.
Right.
Because I truly believe that, the more educated you are and you understand the principles and the theories behind, what causes somebody to do X, Y, Z, then you're going to deliver a better product to the community. Love it.
Chief was a big advocate for, I had said, for those that may be listening and contemplating a career in law enforcement, that I said, is there some tips and tricks of the trade that could help somebody? And he said, absolutely, just stay educated, stay in school. And when you guys, the people that are the trainers, I don't know the appropriate name,
field train officers,
you guys recognize those people and notice that they're tenacious, they're willing to learn, and it helps them out tremendously over the longevity of their career. And then when and if the time may come that they don't want to pursue law enforcement, they have something that could be, admin wise still within the facility. So I think it's a great thing. And that's something that I was going to ask you, but I think it goes without saying, right? Pretty much if people are listening and contemplating a law enforcement career to any capacity, get in school about it. And
yeah, I think clearly education, you can't go wrong there. And I'll give you, you've commented on Brittany a couple of times. I know your viewers can't see her. She's sitting off screen.
Yeah, you hit it. They're like, where is she?
But we had an opening for the public affairs office, and Brittany applied. She had zero background.
I didn't know this.
In the position. She was working for another company here in Flagler County, and was in a supervisor management role. But she had a degree in English, if I remember right. And we interviewed, because you got to have just the right person in that position. And so we took a chance on Brittany, and I couldn't ask for a better team. She picked up so quick. She can draft a news release for me. She many times she creates the quotes. I may modify them a little bit, but she's figured out my personality and how I want the image of the sheriff's office and myself, and just delivers. And then she has Shannon that works with her, and Shannon has a super creative mind. So I have two ends of the millennial spectrum here. So I have Shannon that's kind of, I think.
Do we know Shannon?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Shannon she's probably listening right now, so hopefully she won't shoot me.
Better say nice things.
But Shannon is the younger millennial.
Okay.
And I think Brittany, wasn't a Zennial or something just come out or something?
I can't keep track of these.
But
we're millennials.
But
yeah, okay.
So I'm not trying to say Brittany's age here, but it's just been a very great dynamic team is what I'm trying to point out. So and Shannon, if you look at most of our posts on Facebook that have a graphic with it,
that's her,
or our videos, for the most part, that's Shannon.
That's awesome.
She's extremely creative. In fact, this dynamic team won a national award for in effect community outreach through social media, and so they just do a great job. And I believe in keeping the community informed. Now I know I get some businesses that don't like the information that we put out because they think it may hurt their sales. The reality is that if we clean up a drug house, it usually is coming from a tip in the neighborhood. That should increase values, not decrease values.
Amen.
Okay. So my wife's actually a realtor. So, although she doesn't practice, she just keeps her license, active. So she kind of tends to view this, on my side,
Yeah.
the way, you increase values by cleaning up, neighborhoods.
On that note, what was it there's a lot of other things I love that you've done. We're going to get to the green roof inn and all that fun stuff and the bingo thing. But what I love is when you break up a drug house and you put the little stand. Is this all the sheriff's brainchild? Or
okay. So my wife actually saw that in another state by another sheriff, brought it to me, and I adjusted it and made it a little more eye-catching.
Put your flavor to it.
And so there is some misinformation out there that on these signs. We only leave those signs while we're serving the search warrant.
Okay.
And so we take the sign with us for a couple of reasons. One is if we leave it there, someone's going to steal it and prank it on somebody else's house, yard, and we don't want that done. And we put it out there because we want the residents to know, because many times there are tipsters, but these cases sometimes take months and months to build, so they think that you're not doing anything.
Right.
We want them to know that we took action. And if in the process the people that we arrested get embarrassed because their house is being shown in the background, well, too bad. Don't be a poison peddler in Flagler County. Go somewhere else.
So for those that are listening, if you don't know, which I hope you do, but there are these, I think, pretty awesome signs that they're the real estate signs you put in there. Now, this was interesting though. The longevity of the sign is only while, like I said, you're kind of like working on the property. 3 or 4
hours,
right?
Depending
so it's not
on how
something
long
that's left there for like 3 weeks, and it
correct.
So because I can already hear, I guess that's what the haters were saying, right? Like, oh,
correct.
The signs. But I mean, you're cleaning up the street, you're taking the drug house out of business, and I think you're using a very, I don't know the right word to use, but I think you're using a kind of a unique way of using, once again, the social media to show don't do this, and not to mention educating us that, hey, it's been cleaned up.
Right.
Because in all due respect, Sheriff, I think there's also you're owed a little bit of appreciation, and those are some bragging rights to your force and to your organization, what you guys are doing, because like I said, I'm sure once again, every day you're waking up, your life is in harm's way, and
So the sign, you can see them on our news releases when we serve a search warrant, if you haven't seen one, but it says it's the size of a for sale sign or something like that. You'd stick a campaign sign size even. It says this drug house closed for business, with our sheriff's star on it by Sheriff Rick Staly, and the majority of the community appreciates it. There's a small group that doesn't. But my job, I'm never going to please everybody 100%.
Yep.
I think the results are what matter. Crime's down 22%, arrests are up 15%. When they're in the jail or the green roof inn, as I've nicknamed it, they're not preying on the community, and that helps drive the crime down. We've worked with our federal partners. So these, drug offenders that are convicted felons that get a gun, on the black market, the federal system will deal with them significantly harsher than the state system. So we work with our partners, and the difference there is that when a federal charge is filed on you for drug dealing, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, you are kept in the federal jail. Wow. They have to bring you to trial for within 6 months, which happens. And then when you're found guilty and you are sentenced to 10, 15 years or whatever, you serve it at a federal prison. Unlike the state system where you get bond and you're out committing crime again and back to drug dealing or whatever you were doing, and then maybe you're convicted and then maybe you get sent to state prison, the federal system. So we try to use our federal partners as much as we can, because we know that when they're in that system and they're convicted, they're going to be out of this community for quite a while.
Yep. You had talked about the Green Roof Inn. Another one is this, you're at your desk one day and you're like, I gotta, I like, where does that, I think of all things you've done, that probably has been the most interesting and fascinating. The bingo too, but I would say the Green Roof Inn's more, it's older than the bingo. The bingo's more new.
It is. So
yeah, like give me what is this now? Is it another wife invention? Is she
no, actually, I could take credit for that one, but I was writing my inauguration speech, and while I was writing it, the Green Roof Inn ideal came to me. Okay, so I nicknamed the jail the Green Roof Inn, and basically said, if you're a criminal in Flagler County, there's a new sheriff in town, and if you commit crime, you're going to go to the Green Roof Inn. And so I don't know, probably 7-8 months after I was sworn in as sheriff, I'm sitting in my office one day, and I thought, I should put a sign out there, a retro neon sign, along with a listing of the accommodations. And some people took offense to that, but to me, it's a crime prevention sign. So if you don't want to be in a cell with other people, this is not a hotel. Okay. Right. If you want meal choices, we offer designer clothing and jewelry. It's usually an orange jumpsuit with handcuffs or leg irons. There's no private showers, so then don't get arrested. Right. Don't commit a crime. And so I say that on the sign. And after I unveiled the sign, one of our dispatchers said, Sheriff, you missed something. I said, what was that? They said, you should have said no turn down service. And I did. I thought that was a great one that I missed. But there's also an exit sign. And nobody really talks about the exit sign. But the exit sign says, thank you for visiting the Green Roof Inn. Don't come back.
I love it.
And it says, but if you must commit another crime, the light is always on and we have a bed waiting for you. And it says, stay crime free. And because of the location of jail and there's no public transportation out there like you have in big cities, if you're not picked up from the jail, you have to walk by that sign when you leave.
Yep.
Or if somebody does pick you up, then you get to see that sign on your way out. So, our goal is we don't want to arrest you. Just don't commit a crime.
Yep.
And that's the best way to stay out of the Green Roof Inn.
I love it. Well, once again, I'm sure I've learned this through trial and tribulation myself with my own little show, that there's always going to be, not everyone likes it, believe it or not. And I've learned to just, it is what it is, but you have a town to protect, you have officers to protect and faculty to protect. And you also you're using it as a different means of just saying, this is the statistics. I think it's amazing how you're using it, and you're having a little bit of fun with it, even though if that's not the right way of describing it, but you're bringing attention to something that used to just be out in the middle of nowhere, and no one, for people like me that are pretty just regular dudes that have never been to the Green Roof Inn. I think I saw it once. I was on my way to somewhere, and I was taking that really crazy country road. Is it I-75 or something? Yeah, that's the way you get to DeLand. And I saw it. And once again, man, I think it's great. And for those that don't like it, then don't go, or I don't know. But I think it's a great way, and that's what trickles into the bingo thing. Because the bingo, I love me that. Now, aren't you looking for a new partner?
I am. You'll have to watch on Friday to find out who it is. The new thing?
All right. So if you don't know about the bingo, which once again, I think everyone pretty much, there was no one said to me, who's this guy coming? So you have the Friday bingo, which you pretty much, and with all seriousness, what you're doing is the people that are being illustrated on this bingo thing are high.
They're
offenders.
Fugitives.
Yeah, they're fugitives. I mean, there is a lot of validity and seriousness behind that. So what you're doing is you're then picking one of those fugitives, and for that day, for that week, they're showcased. And right. This is actually have we seen a good response as far as I would imagine, right? Because
we have, not only from tipsters telling us where they are, but occasionally an offender will decide to taunt us on that, which we've had, which was pretty interesting. So let me tell you where that came from, because you've asked me where all this other stuff has come from. So a friend of mine I've known for a very long time is the sheriff of Brevard County, Wayne Ivey, and he has the Wheel of Fugitive. Okay. A spin off of the Wheel of Fortune. And so I got that idea from him. And he's been sheriff, I think, 8 years now. And but I knew I couldn't copy
Couldn't
him.
copy him.
Okay. So I was trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? And I came up with Fugitive Friday Bingo. So I was in a meeting with Sheriff Ivy, and I said, Wayne, I want to tell you, I'm going to do something similar. He goes, what are you doing? And I said, I'm taking your Wheel of Fugitive to version 2.0. And he started laughing. He said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I've used drug seized money to buy an old Florida lottery machine.
Okay.
And so the drug dealers paid for it. And so I told him what we're doing, and he just started laughing. Well, it has been a huge success. We apprehend about 55% of the people that we highlight on that, which is a pretty good percentage rate from tips. But probably the funniest one that occurred was we posted this guy up there, and he saw it, and he started taunting us on Facebook.
Get out of town.
Okay. And
like on his own personal account.
Well, on ours, he was
no, commenting. But I mean, like he's using his
correct.
Unbelievable.
Okay. So that shows you why he's wanted, because he doesn't make very good decisions.
Right.
Because if you're highlighted, you're already a focus subject.
Right.
And then if you taunt us, you're even more focused than you were before. So our fugitive unit was able to track him to Citrus County. And the sheriff there is a friend of mine. And I called him. And I told him what was going on. He goes, we're on it. So I'll never forget the day this occurred, because it was Valentine's Day. And we had tracked him to his girlfriend's house in Citrus County. And the sheriff's office there apprehended him about 10:30 at night in the bedroom with his girlfriend on Valentine's Day. So I'm speculating that it didn't end the way he was hoping that night. And he went to the Citrus County Jail. And then we picked him up on the following Monday and brought him, extradited him back to Flagler County. And while he was going past the Green Roof Inn sign, he asked the deputy if he could get out and take a picture next to the sign. Obviously, that was denied. Right. But, one of the things I told the employees when I met with them as a group back in March of 2017, I laid out the vision of the sheriff's office and here's what we're going to do. And I meet with the entire group annually every year so that they know what we've accomplished together and where we're going in this current fiscal year. Well, one of the things that I told them, I said, I laid out the vision and I said, here's the deal. We're going to have fun while we do it.
Yeah.
Because we have a tough enough job. Mm-hmm. We see things that most people never see. And so we need to have a little fun with this job too. And so I hopefully that's I've been able to build a culture where the employees know they have a little fun. And I'll give you an example of them doing that was back to the lip sync. After we released ours, 2 squads got together and they created their own, and they sent it to Brittany.
Our own squads?
Yeah, two Flagler Sheriff patrol squads got together, and they created their own lip sync video. Oh. And so they sent it to Brittany, asking for approval to post it. And it was like, it's not quite the quality that we would want, but I said, okay, do it on. I think we were doing Thursdays. Or Wednesdays, we were talking about somebody in the sheriff's office behind the scenes. I said, post it on that day. Well, the next thing I knew, that thing just took off, and they turned our Facebook page into a deputy dating site based on the comments that were occurring, because there were comments like, wow, I didn't know Flagler had such hot-looking deputies. And one that I remember was, I think I'm going to speed down Belterre and see if I can get pulled over by this one. And I happened to see that post. So they didn't know it was me that actually responded, because when we respond, it's just a generic response. And I said, we don't recommend that because it may not turn out the way you're hoping.
Right.
And so, I think I've been able to engage the team, and you see that by how hard they're working in the community. So it works out well.
It's working for me. And like I said, just from a total generic civilian standpoint that's connected to the internet, like we all are, I love it, man. I really, and I hope that I get to know you even better and stay in contact with you. But I feel when I read some of it, I feel like it is you. Like, you're very personable. You're not like our chief is doing, and you're putting and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, I know you guys have a city to protect and families and stuff, but you guys seem to almost invite the come talk with me factor. Like, you know what I mean? Is that safe to say? You guys seem to be very accessible.
Mm-hmm.
You're not like, even like I said, even for me, like my little show at my kitchen table to make the time for me is like, that should reflect to our community that it's special. It's a very special town. We're not a million people plus, and it's very intimate. And I think, of course, everyone's going to find some rhythm and rhyme that they don't like, but most importantly, your guys' life is on the line, and here you are sitting here and being a person and taking time. And like I said, is it safe to say that you're a pretty open guy from what I understand?
I'm, here's the ironic thing about all this is I'm really an introvert.
Really?
And but over the years, when I've been in different leadership positions, I've had to make myself be an extrovert. So now it really comes more natural.
Right.
But I'm not a sheriff that sits in the office. I like to go out on patrol. I do that on many Friday nights. It allows me to interact with the deputies. They get to see the sheriff out there leading from the front.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, I also have a very patient wife because I tend to work 12 plus hour days, and I'm out in the community a lot, and many times she's there with me. She's a great partner when we have community events together. Probably the worst part of the job is sitting behind a desk for me.
Right.
And, having to read draft policy or, boring stuff like that. I'd much rather be out with the employees. But last night we had 2 vehicle pursuits, both authorized under our policy, and apprehended some bad people and got them where they belong, in the jail. Mm-hmm. Whether it was Volusia Jail, where we helped them apprehend some homicide and shooting suspects, or people that we knew we had warrants for, and they kept running from us. The team is really working hard, and I couldn't be more proud of them.
Well, we couldn't be more appreciative, man. We'll do this too for who's open for this Friday bingo partnership thingy. Who's in the pool, or how are you picking it? I'm interested.
Corporal Weatherhold, who is retiring.
Okay.
He lined up a couple, 3 candidates.
Okay.
That showed interest, and we did sample Fugitive Friday bingos.
They had to do a fake one, see how they did it.
Yep. And so out of the 3, I picked one, but that's as far as I can go. You got to watch Friday morning,
Your Honor. No more further questions. So, and then the last thing too, I had a few people ask me about. There's a new dog on the force.
Yeah.
So I had a few people who wanted me to ask you about the dog.
Yeah.
We got it's a cute little pup.
It's a bloodhound.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a little bit bigger now. He's a very, very fast growing bloodhound. He comes from great bloodhound lines that the breeder in Kentucky breeds strictly for law enforcement in search and rescue. When he's full grown, he'll probably be about 120 pounds.
Big boy.
And but he's in training now. And when he's 6 months old, he should be fully trained, believe it or not. And we discovered the need for it when we had an endangered young man, Ricky Wheeler, go missing.
Okay.
And we searched for him for 5 days. And to be very candid, we thought on day 4 and 5 it was going to be a recovery and not a success story. And we had used bloodhounds from Putnam County and St. Johns County. And previously, we've used them from Tomoka State Prison and both those agencies on other cases. And so some citizens, we opened it up for volunteers to help us search. And some citizens found his clothes. Now, why Ricky took the clothes off, we'll never know the answer to that. And so we stopped the search to protect the scene. The Putnam County Sheriff's bloodhound named Putnam came and took us right to Ricky.
Wow.
And he was found alive.
Because we didn't have our own bloodhound at the time.
We have shepherds
Okay.
that are dual purpose. They do track and they do narcotics, and we have one explosive detection dog.
Okay.
But bloodhound, while shepherds do a good job tracking, nothing beats a bloodhound, because that's exactly what they're trained for. And if you go back in history, in the prison system, they always had bloodhounds and for escaped prisoners and so forth. And so we had a benefactor that donated the funds to buy the dog and get him here. It was about $1,500, which in the price of a canine, that's like super cheap, because most shepherds are about $10,000.
I was going to say, I would imagine that's
right.
Wow.
And but he is doing phenomenal. But the community has certainly fallen in love with him.
They have.
When we did that first video, I think it had close to 60,000 views when we asked for names. I think we had over 2,500 names submitted. Now, some of those obviously were duplicates. And then so we went through and kind of picked out the 5 names that were being submitted the most.
Okay.
And then the handler and I and some other people picked the final name.
Have we announced it yet?
Yeah, it's Holmes.
Oh, we have,
like Sherlock
the name.
Holmes.
Okay.
And the reason it was picked is because Holmes is going to be bringing people home.
Ooh, I
is
like
how
it.
that kind of came about.
That's
and
awesome.
He's a little big now to hold. Now I think he weighs close to 30 pounds now, I think, if I remember right. And but when he was just a 8-week-old pup,
I saw you holding him.
And he didn't like being held. Rather, he skirmished in your arms. He wanted to be put down on the ground. The minute he got down, his nose went right to the ground, and he's out tracking who knows what.
Right.
And so I think he's going to be a great addition. We do a weekly update with him now, and he's just a rock star.
He has turned into a rock star. Imagine if all the questions people were like, just my friends and family and people around here, they're like, ask about the dog. So who's the lucky person that gets to be like the who does he live with and stuff?
So Corporal Fred Gimble is his handler.
So that's his, like, going to be his home, right?
Yes, more than likely. Corporal Gimble also has a shepherd right now too, and so it's kind of funny because the shepherd gets kept in a kennel when at home, and Holmes is running around taunting the shepherd,
of course,
because he's in the yard, fenced-in yard. But
so if when he's active, that officer will be the one taking him, like he'll be the one that's facilitating the finding. That's fantastic.
And that's a single purpose dog, so it's not aggressive dog. It's strictly a track dog.
Gotcha.
But we have a lot of dementia and Alzheimer's patients in Flagler County that go missing.
Silver alert thing.
Correct. They go missing, and we have to expend a lot of resources trying to find them before they hurt themselves.
Right.
And so Holmes hopefully will help us find them quicker, which ultimately is savings for the taxpayer.
Amen. Well, let's do this too, Sheriff. Is there anything that with the platform that I'm trying to give to not only you, but our community, is there something that's been on your heart or something that you wanted to share that I haven't asked you? Or?
Well, sure. So obviously we want the community to use common sense to help reduce property crime predominantly, but just in general when they're out. Remember that texting and driving now is illegal.
July 1st.
Correct. In Florida. And what most people don't know is that talking on a handheld device in a school zone or a construction zone is also illegal now.
Just those zones?
Yeah, just those zones. That was
who writes that one up?
Well, that's the legislature. Sometimes you never really understand what comes out of the legislature, but I'm sure that was a compromise from we're not going to do any of this to we're going to restrict it a lot, and then you get a compromise.
So if I'm on my phone and I'm driving by Rimfire School, like talking on it.
If you're holding it, it's a violation of
So
the
it's
law.
like the bigger cities, you can't even be on the phone at all, irrelevant of where you are. You just can't even be on them, like Connecticut, stuff like that. So that's a big deal, man.
So that's a big change. So
I didn't even know that.
We're doing a lot of education with the community on that. And then if you haven't been to our website, I would encourage you to go to flaglersheriff.com, sign up for our newsletter. We send out a newsletter once a month. So we don't overload it, but we think it's information that you can use. You also find plenty of tips on how to protect yourself. Attend our next Sheriff Citizens Academy. You can sign up for that, a self-defense class that we host.
I saw that.
So you can find a lot of information on our website. I guess it's time for me to try some of your unsweet tea.
Yeah, but for those that don't know, when you book the show, you get your beverage of choice. He went for the unsweetened tea. So that was my publicist, Camille. She made sure to have that.
Well, it's very good.
Good. I tagged also the Flagler County's Sheriff's Facebook page, which is a joy to watch, because even today, like the two things you guys posted today, with that dude, the whole thing. I mean, it's good to know these things.
Yeah.
And even
so I would encourage your listeners to sign up for our Facebook. There's a lot of things that we do that the media does not cover. And so you can find it there, or download our app on your phone.
I didn't even know you had that.
And you'll get almost real-time information on what's going on. If you have your location on and we have an area shut down, a bad crash, it will tell you to suggest that you stay out of that area so you don't get caught up in a traffic jam. So you can find both of those on, I think it's the Apple Store and Google Play.
You did it.
And, download them. So, we provide a lot of information. And so we would encourage the community to sign up for any of that.
Right. Well, the easiest one is just the Facebook page. If everyone's getting too lazy out there, just the Facebook page alone is phenomenal. The communication factor you guys are doing. And I mean this sincerely too, Sheriff. As I get to grow with you and my platform, me as a person, and I speak on behalf of my entire family, we're always here for you. Anything we can do to help spread awareness, spread education, spread love, most importantly. And we really, today was a very special day for me, for you coming and taking that time out of your day. So,
well, appreciate the opportunity, and for your listeners, keep our team in your prayers. And we've talked a lot about what deputies do, but don't forget, I have a detention division that, keeps the bad guys in there and not preying on the community. And they have to, feed them and all that stuff. Our 911 center, that's the lifeline for the community and for our deputies. And then all the other support from CSI to records, to all the people that you don't see that make this work in the community. So always keep them in your thoughts and prayers, because they do a stressful, dangerous job.
I can't, literally today when I was getting ready for the show, I mean this when I say it, like people that are putting their life on the line. I've never experienced that, and I hope to never experience that, because it's to me automatically your hero status. And I mean this. I mean, it's amazing that you guys are waking up every day and knowing that. It's crazy. Right. But I really appreciate you a lot. I think we did good. Look, did we do all right? Yeah,
it's perfect. I got to head to St. John's.
You have a class, I think, today or tomorrow.
I'm doing a recruiting mission for new deputies, and
awesome.
Up at St. John's River Academy, and so I have to be there at 4:30. But we're good. We'll
let you get going, Sheriff.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it. We'll get this set up, And I don't think we got kicked off. Look at that. You're good.
Oh, there you go. And we'll leave this stuff with you in case you're curious.
Yeah.
And I'll be glad to do it again sometime.
Sheriff, I'm getting